The heart monitor beeped in a slow, uneven rhythm in the dim hospital room. Chen lay on the thin mattress, 42 years old, body wasted, eyes half open. He tasted metal and dryness, every breath a small negotiation with his lungs. No family waited by the bed, no friends sat in the cold plastic chair. He had once imagined dying in a big house, full of light and quiet pride. Instead, fluorescent light hummed above him, buzzing like a tired insect. His life played back in uneven fragments, like a corrupted tape. Early mornings in a cold room, his parents arguing softly about money. Failed ventures stacked in his memory, small shops, online schemes, empty accounts, clients who vanished. Markets that turned the moment he entered. He had always blamed luck. Wrong year, wrong cycle, wrong people. Now, staring at the ceiling, he finally saw the pattern in his ruin. It was never pure bad luck. It was blind risk, taken without knowing the odds. If I knew the odds, he thought, I never would have bet everything so often. The monitor beeped slower. Each tone felt further away than the last. His vision tunneled, ceiling light shrinking to a single pale circle. If I knew the odds, the thought repeated, thinner each time, then vanished. Darkness ends with a breath he did not expect to take. The ceiling above him is yellowed, cracked, and painfully familiar. His chest is light, no machines, no plastic tubes, just air. For a heartbeat, he expects the hospital beeps to return. Silence answers instead. Thin walls, a distant motorcycle. He forces himself to look around. The room is small and cheap. The sagging desk, the secondhand chair, the crooked window latch. He remembers this place. He remembers hating it. His hands are wrong, the skin is smooth, the knuckles unscarred. He stares at his reflection in the cracked wardrobe mirror. A teenager looks back, not the 42-year-old who died yesterday. Memory floods in, the hospital smell, the beeping slowing down. He remembers thinking, this is it, no more chances. Yet the calendar on the wall says a year from his past. His pulse spikes, his breathing turns shallow and quick. Dream, coma, hallucination. He tests each word and rejects it. Every smell is too sharp, every object exactly as he remembers. From the kitchen, his mother's voice drifts in, tired but warm. He had not heard that voice in years. His throat tightens. He answers on reflex, voice young and steady. Too steady. He forces himself to eat congee at the wobbly kitchen table. His father's work boots wait by the door, still unbroken by injury. Back in his room, he closes the door and finally lets panic surface. He forces his thoughts into order. Timeline, age, assets, debts. As he reaches for the pen, something flickers at the edge of sight. A translucent line of text forms, pale and soundless in the air. Decision probability detected. The glowing panel hovered above his palm, thin as mist, sharp as a scalpel. Thin white text etched itself across the surface, like ice forming on glass. Decision probability detected, it read. Awaiting input. Chen exhaled slowly. Not a hallucination, then. He focused on a simple thought. Stand up. The panel flickered. Decision recognized. Probability range displayed. Stand up. Success probability, 99 to 100%. He stood, no dizziness, no lag. The panel dimmed as if satisfied. He tried again. Pick up the cup on the desk. Pick up cup. Success probability, 96 to 99%. Minor slip risk. He pinched the handle carefully. The cup wobbled, then steadied. Trivial, he thought. But it knew even that. New text scrolled into view. Usage rules. No futures, the first line stated. Only probabilities from now. It would not show outcomes. Only odds based on current conditions. Higher stakes decisions, it warned, would drain his mind. Emotionally charged choices would twist the numbers. Use the same path too often, and accuracy would decay. No guarantees, he realized, just the least suicidal choice. He closed his eyes, letting the rules settle into place like a ledger. Morning light leaked through the thin curtains of Chen's cramped room. The faint hum of traffic and distant factory horns pressed in from outside. This was home. Again, the same stains on the ceiling, the same cheap fan. Chen forced his breathing to steady and let the shock of rebirth pass. Memories of 42 years pressed against the cheap wallpaper like a second skin. If this is real, he thought, then the numbers come first. He pulled open the desk drawer and dumped its contents onto the scarred surface. Crinkled utility bills, school notices, and medical invoices spread like battle maps. His mother's handwriting on a payment slip was small and careful, almost apologetic. Wang Mei, sewing thread into fabric all day, signing away her wages at night. His father's name appeared on a loan contract, the numbers circled in red ballpoint. Li Chen picked up the passbook and flipped through the faded stamp marks. Balance, 418 yuan, a thin line between survival and nothing. He took a breath and began to list everything. Income on the left, costs on the right. Factory wages, construction pay, rent, rice, tuition, medicine, he wrote them all. As his mind aligned around the problem, the translucent interface stirred to life. Decision scope detected, the silent words formed. Family financial trajectory. Numbers shimmered, then resolved into a single cold line of text and a range. Projected life stability by age 40, 12%, range 10 to 15. Even without missed steps or disasters, the best the world offered him was 12. Poverty, he realized, was not a crisis, it was a default setting. One illness, one layoff, one mistake, and that 12 collapsed into 0. In his last life, he had flailed against that number until it killed him. This time, he stared at the 12 and felt something colder than fear. Refusal. 12% was not destiny. It was a starting point he intended to erase. Dawn seeps into the room as Li Chen stares at the stained ceiling. First money is the hardest, he thinks. After that, odds start to bend. He sits up, opens his wallet, and fans 3 crumpled bills on the bed. 3 bills, a few coins. That is his entire buffer against the world. Decision probability, he calls silently. How do I turn this into more? The ledger responds with a whisper of data only he can see and feel. Street market arbitrage. Success range, high but small scale. Mental cost, low. He grabs his worn backpack, folds the bills, and heads for the door. Outside, the campus street is noisy, lined with cheap stalls and banners. He remembers this row of stalls from his first life, and its wasted chances. A stall piled with exam prep books catches his eye. Old covers but clean pages. The ledger flickers. Buy and resell to first-year students. Success, very likely. He tests quantities in his mind. 10 copies, 15, 20. Probabilities shift. 10 books keeps risk low and margin high. Mental strain flickers, then steadies. He bargains patiently, shaving the price down, coin by coin, without pride. Books packed. He canvasses dorm notice boards with neat handwritten ads. Cheap, lightly used, delivered to your room, he writes, pricing just below market. By evening, a nervous first-year knocks, clutching a list of needed titles. Li Chen matches titles, quotes the price, and feels the first profit click. Small, he thinks, watching the coins glitter. But small and almost certain. Over the week, more knocks follow. Books flow out. Cash trickles back in. The ledger shows each sale within a narrow high band. Predictable, stable. At night, he counts earnings, then opens an old phone on his desk. In his last life, a repair shop failed. The skills did not. He buys broken devices cheap from classmates, the ledger nodding its approval. Repair success probability holds high. Margin modest, but nearly riskless. Days blur into cycles of books, repairs, and quiet, counted progress. One evening, the ledger updates his life stability. Slightly higher, still fragile. First money is the hardest, he repeats softly. The climb has finally begun. By the 3rd week, Li Chen's small trades were no longer exciting. He checked the ledger again, expecting clean, sharp numbers. Instead, the numbers wavered, ranges swelling and shrinking. A dull ache pressed behind his eyes, slow and persistent. He chose a trivial test, buy or skip a discounted notebook. The probability flickered from 90 to 60, then back again. A sharp spike of pain lanced through his skull as he stared. System fatigue, he realized. Even certainty had a price. Back home, he opened the ledger and compared old logs to new. Repeated paths blurred first. Safe, easy profits lost definition. Certainty, he noted, grew more expensive with every use. He forced himself to close the ledger and sit in the dark. The world without numbers felt raw, loud, and slightly unsafe. He would spend his certainty only where failure meant ruin. The campus canteen buzzed, but Li Chen ate in measured silence. Across from him, Zhao Ming dropped his tray with a noisy clatter. "You changed," Zhao Ming said, squinting. "You walk like you own the place." Li Chen met his gaze, heartbeat steady. "I just stopped wasting motion." "Stopped wasting motion," Zhao repeated, frowning. "Since when are you a sage?" "You keep hitting perfect timing," Zhao said. "Exams, part-time jobs, even sales." Li Chen felt the familiar mental weight, the unseen ledger quietly humming. "I just stopped guessing," he said at last. "I only move when it makes sense." Zhao studied him, then laughed. "Fine, master planner. Just do not forget me. I will need you," Li Chen thought. Out loud, he only said, "I will not." Night settles over the city as Li Chen studies the market on his aging laptop. On the screen, a forgotten sector chart inches upward, almost ashamed of itself. Decision detected. The probability ledger blooms into view, pale lines in the dark. Market entry, small tech supplier. Success range, 58 to 64%. He exhales slowly. In his last life, he had never moved on 61%. He adjusts the amount. At 30% of his savings, the range climbs, but barely. At 80% of everything he owns, the range narrows, anchored at 61. His parents' faces rise in his mind. The numbers waver, percentages blurring at the edges. He forces his breath to steady. The blur recedes. The range settles again at 61. No decision is safe, he thinks. Some are just less suicidal. He clicks confirm. At the brokerage counter, a clerk barely looks up as his tiny order prints. Leaving the office, he feels lighter and sicker at once. The city noise suddenly sharp. 1 week later, the market flickered green across the dusty campus computer room. Chen watched quietly, hands in his pockets, as numbers crawled up the screen. Behind him, Wen laughed, flanked by 2 boys in branded jackets. "So the factory kid thinks he can beat my dad's fund?" Wen drawled. Chen did not look at him. The ledger showed 80% and climbing. On Wen's screen, his favored stock line trembled, then tipped red. He smirked and bought more. Confident dips were just chances to flex wealth. Minutes later, the sector surged everywhere except the shares Wen held. His chart bled downward, a red staircase no inherited money could stop. Around them, students whispered, eyes darting between green and red screens. Someone muttered that Chen had nailed the bottom again, like magic. Chen Yu glanced over from a corner terminal, gaze sharpening behind thin glasses. Wen slammed his mouse, face flushing as another 1,000 vanished. He spun toward Chen. "You had inside news, didn't you, street rat?" Chen met his glare, voice flat. "I just read what you ignore." In Chen Yu's eyes, probability stopped being luck and became a pattern. For the first time, Chen realized someone was tracking his impossible wins. The day his father fell, the ledger started lying in ways it never had before. Chen had been reviewing small trades when his old keypad phone began to vibrate. Unknown number, construction site code in the caller ID. His grip tightened on the phone. The voice on the other end was shaking. "Brother Lee, your dad fell from the scaffolding." For a second, he could not speak. The ledger stayed silent, no numbers in sight. "I am coming," he said. The words felt automatic, his body moving before thought returned. The corridor smelled of damp concrete. He ran down the stairs, skipping entire flights. Outside, the city seemed louder than usual. Horns, shouting, the cold bite of winter air. On the bus, he finally raised the ledger. Probability, reaching the hospital in time, 97. High odds. Too easy. The ledger was telling him only that he would arrive to see the damage. The hospital lobby hit him with disinfectant, rushed footsteps, and the low hum of worry. He found his mother on a plastic chair, hands clenched around an old cloth bag, eyes red. She looked up at him, trying to smile. "Chen, your dad is inside. They are still checking." Through a narrow window in the door, he saw his father on the bed, leg wrapped in bloody gauze. Memories overlapped. In his last life, this fall had been the start of 20 years of debt. He opened the ledger. Survival probability for Chen. This incident alone, 84 to 89. Alive then, breathing. The relief was thin. Probability said nothing about walking again. A nurse called them to the payment desk. For now, the doctor wants to operate quickly. At the cashier window, numbers appeared that no ledger was needed to interpret. Deposit, surgery, hospitalization. The total was more than his family's annual income. In the last life, they had signed without thinking. This time, Chen lifted the ledger first. Scenario: pay everything from savings, borrow the rest. Family stability in 5 years, 13 to 18. Guaranteed survival, guaranteed chains, a life of overtime and repayment, just like before. He switched scenarios. Use only the minimum for surgery. Keep capital to accelerate income. Family stability, if he executed perfectly, 38 to 46. Father's long-term recovery uncertain. His pulse spiked. The numbers on the ledger trembled, ranges widening as if dragged by shaking hands. He took a step back from the desk, breathing slowly, counting each inhale like a metronome. "You are not just his son," he told himself. "You are the only one here who can read risk." He reopened the ledger. This time the numbers steadied, still low, but no longer shaking apart. No decision was safe. Some simply killed slower. He chose the path that bled the least. "We will pay the minimum first," he told the cashier. "I will bring the rest within 3 days." His mother started to protest, then saw his eyes, colder than she had ever known. She nodded. As the receipt printed, the ledger flickered again. New branches of risk unfolded before him. The hospital corridor reeked of disinfectant and fear as Li Chen paced alone. Through the glass, his father lay motionless, chest rising under a tangle of tubes. Wang Mei sat hunched on a plastic bench, fingers red and raw around the bill folder. He took the folder, skimmed the numbers, and felt his pulse hammer in his ears. In his mind, the probability ledger surfaced as a pale grid over the paper. Projected costs, loan options, future income, the percentages writhed instead of settling. System alert. Emotional bias detected. The words pulsed coldly at the edge of his vision. He blinked hard. The same decision now swung between 20 and 80% in seconds. His mother whispered, asking what they should do. His throat tightened around any answer. Li Chen pictured a desperate, high-risk investment, and the ledger flashed a dizzying range. If he won, the bills vanished. If he lost, his family sank deeper than before his return. He forced himself to test the ledger on something trivial, a drink from the vending machine. Even that result flickered. His craving for sweetness dragged the odds like a hidden hand. He stepped back, shut his eyes, and counted his breaths until the corridor sounds returned. When he reopened the ledger, the drink choice steadied, a narrow but consistent band of odds. Emotion bends the frame, he thought. The ledger does not lie. I do, to myself. Backed by his mother, he spoke slowly, choosing words the way he now chose risks. He promised nothing miraculous, only that he would not gamble their future on panic. Between feeling and number, he realized his real power was learning when not to move. Night settled over the cramped rental room like a second layer of dust. The cheap desk was buried in handwritten ledgers and crumpled receipts. Zhao Ming counted the last stack of bills, eyes shining with disbelief. "We actually made this in 1 month." He slapped the money on the table. Li Chen nodded, expression calm, heart quietly calculating trajectories. To Zhao Ming, it was a small miracle. To Li Chen, it was a data point. "We should expand," Zhao Ming said, suddenly serious. "Where else can we go?" Decision probability detected. The silent line slid across Li Chen's vision. A translucent pain unfolded over Zhao Ming's eager face. Joint expansion with Zhao Ming. Projected success 49 to 55%. Alternative path solo growth. Projected success 62% but slower. The numbers hovered like a quiet accusation. "You are the variable." Li Chen lowered his gaze, masking the sharp chill that ran through him. In his first life, a partnership had ended in lawsuits, debt, and silence. He still remembered signing papers with a shaking hand at 37. Across the table, Zhao Ming misread the pause as rejection. "Hey, if you don't trust me, just say it, I can handle it." "It's not that," Li Chen said, voice even. "Why do you want to expand?" Zhao Ming blinked, caught off guard by the blunt question. "Because this can't just be pocket money," he said. "We can build something real. You spot the chances, I run the grind, we stop wasting time." He leaned forward, gaze steady. "I believe in you more than in the market." Emotional bias detected. The ledger flashed soft warning amber. Projected success range adjusted 48 to 56%. The change was tiny, yet Li Chen felt the weight of each new decimal. Trust raises upside, he thought, but it also magnifies the fall. He pictured his parents' medical bills and the thin walls at home. A safe path meant stability for them, and a ceiling for him. Li Chen folded his hands on the table, eyes on Zhao Ming. "If we do this," he said, "there are rules, non-negotiable. No hidden debts, no side deals, no touching client money without record. We write everything down, every yuan, every decision, under both names." Zhao Ming listened, brows knitting, then slowly nodded. "You handle numbers, I'll handle people. But we move together," he said. The ledger flickered as if thinking, projected success 53%. Mental load cost increased, slight fatigue pressed behind his eyes. The safe option still glowed brighter in the corner of his vision. Stay small, stay alone, higher odds, lower impact. He exhaled. That path had already killed him once. Li Chen looked up, meeting Zhao Ming's hopeful, uneasy gaze. "All right," he said finally, "we expand together." Decision locked, probability range fixed for current conditions. Projected success 54%, margin of error widening. Relief broke across Zhao Ming's face. He laughed almost too loudly. "You won't regret this," he said, grinning like a man handed the future. Li Chen allowed himself a thin smile. Not joy, not regret, calculation. Some risks you choose, not because they are safe, he thought, but because standing still is statistically worse. Partnership at 49%, he mused, that is almost a coin flip. He closed the ledger in his mind and reached for the cash book. "Let's start by checking where we can break without dying," he said. Zhao Ming pulled his chair closer. Already talking plans and suppliers, numbers, margins, timelines swirled together into a fragile blueprint. Outside the window, the city glowed indifferent to their tiny decision. Yet Li Chen knew the odds had shifted, not just for him but for others. The world would feel this partnership eventually, or break it. By midsummer, our tiny operation no longer fit inside the dorm room. We rented a bare office above a noodle shop, the paint still smelling raw. Money flowed faster now, but so did variables I could no longer name. The probability ledger hovered before me, its numbers thinner than before. A familiar arbitrage route now showed only 63 to 71%. Last month, the same path had sat comfortably above 80. I took the trade anyway, size trimmed, mind braced for the downside. The profit arrived on schedule, smaller, like a warning instead of a reward. Zhao Ming burst in waving receipts, grinning. We had doubled last month's sales. On the surface, we were thriving. Underneath, my margins and odds were thinning. Each time I reused a route, the ledger's ranges widened like frayed rope. Suppliers delayed shipments. Competitors copied prices faster than before. It was not luck running out. It was the field adapting to our presence. Using the ledger now felt like peering through fog, not glass. Exhaustion gnawed at the edges of my thoughts, attacks on every decision. When Zhao Ming proposed a warehouse, the ledger gave me a wide shrug of odds. 40 to 70%. Not risk, not safety, just uncertainty made visible. For the first time since rebirth, it felt like the future was pushing back. Night settled over campus as Li Chen lingered alone in the quiet classroom. Numbers filled his notebook, hand-drawn charts and arrows crossing each other. Above the paper, the probability ledger floated in faint blue, quietly updating. The ranges were stable tonight, numbers resting instead of twitching at the edges. He exhaled, closing one page when the hair on his neck rose without reason. By the doorway, Chen Yu leaned against the frame, eyes sharp behind thin glasses. Li Chen blinked once, the ledger flickering as new variables entered its field. He forced his gaze down, watching the percentages jitter half a point, then settle. "You are leaving earlier and earlier after study sessions," Chen Yu said lightly. His lips curled in a practiced smile. "Habit," he answered. "Crowds tire me out." She moved closer, pulling out the chair ahead of him, notebook pressed to her chest. The ledger shifted. Probability of simple denial, 41 to 46% success. "You sold that education stock the day before it crashed," she continued quietly. "And you quit the student fund 2 days before their bad quarter results," she added. Her notebook opened, revealing neat columns of dates, trades, and his exits in red. "Why do you always act before things happen, Li Chen?" she finally asked. The ledger spasmed, numbers dissolving into static, then reforming in broken ranges. Warning, external calculation detected, pulsed faintly at the edge of his vision. For the first time, the odds did not reassure him. They felt watched, contested. Night pressed against the window as Li Chen stared at the floating numbers. The probability ledger flickered, percentages sliding up and down like fever. He ran the same scenario 3 times. Each answer came back wildly different. This is not random, he thought. This is the world learning to dodge me. In his first life, he blamed fate. Now fate answered with broken statistics. He pulled up his projected life path, 12% stability. A joke. Every choice since then had twisted that line into something unrecognizable. The ledger was not a prophecy. It was a mirror held to a trembling present. And the more he meddled, the more the reflection warped and blurred. His phone buzzed. Zhao Ming again, eager to push their business into danger. "Meet tonight." "Big move," the message read. His thumb hovered over reply. "Accept, and they could double their capital, or lose most of it in a week." The numbers swarmed into view, percentages drifting like ash in a storm. 40 to 70% success. That range was not guidance. It was a shrug. He felt fear rise, thin and sour, not of failure, but of losing the illusion. "I have been hiding behind decimals," he thought, letting numbers take the blame. Chen Yu was not wrong. People were watching, adapting, tilting the board back. If they can learn me, he reasoned, I can learn them faster than this system. His thumb tapped out a reply before the ledger finished recalculating. Do it, but on our terms, he wrote. No loans, no leverage, cash only. A new line of numbers appeared. Steadier, modest, 58% success. Not safe, just less suicidal, he murmured. That was all he had ever wanted. He accepted that the odds would never be certain again. People would adjust. So would he. That, he realized, was the only stable strategy left. The ledger dimmed slightly, as if conceding its throne tool, not master. Outside, the city roared with unknowable variables. He stepped toward them. This was not about beating the odds anymore. It was about rewriting them. One least impossible choice at a time, until the world could not keep up.